Hello, I'm Gustavo Zeidan. I'm here today to talk about a very important topic for SMBs, cybersecurity. I'm pleased to welcome Joel Stradling from IDC, who is an expert in this field and can help us distill the insights from the report that Sage has just published. So, Joel, it's a fascinating report, but tell me, why is it so important for SMBs?
Well, Gustavo, thanks for that introduction. I think one of the most important things that SMBs need to remember is that they are targets for cyber attack. Some smaller companies might feel that because they're smallish, the cyber criminals won't be going after them. But we've seen that that's a completely false impression and that they are actually very, very targeted. And a breach can become very serious. It can be an extinction moment for a small business, in fact.
But is there anything that you feel that we could be doing more collectively?
Yeah, I've always considered cybersecurity to be a team sport. And so collectively, industry bodies, standards, the regulators and government institutions and private enterprises, so third-party outsourced suppliers like Sage, can certainly be doing, be very active to help SMBs increase their cyber resiliency and lower cyber risk.
Well, that's very interesting. One of the issues I think that was highlighted in the survey, and we did ask the question, is, well, how are they feeling about standards, particularly in the topic of AI, whether standards are more helpful to them in terms of helping them grow faster with confidence, or whether standards are slowing them down? Now, I've seen some mixed results. So, why do you think that they are not perhaps perceiving that the standards are helping them as much? And is there anything that perhaps it's required in terms of education, and then helping guide that the adoption of standards?
Well, there are two. It's an uneven response really to that question. So there are two versions. One is regulations are a burden. They're a barrier. They prevent us from innovating and moving quickly. However, it shouldn't be like that. And I think SMBs can work in partnership with regulators. There's no real insistence on having something done immediately. One of the things that emerged in the report is the process of cyber resilience should be continual. And so in actual fact, in that case, we also learned from the survey that the SMBs like the fact that there are rules, for example, AI governance or the EU AI Act, that help them feel like they're building or applying AI in a more trustable way. So I think that it's an uneven answer, but that's
that is brilliant, because you mentioned, I think, a topic that I think it's core to the whole question, isn't it, which is about trust. So how else could they show that they can be trusted by people who want to buy their services, and how else they can show to the world that they're investing in the right things and protecting their business, compared to other competitors who may not be at the same league? So do you think there is that incentive, and what does trust mean for SMBs? Should they invest in the notion of trust? Is there any currency for them in relation to building trust, or they should just accept that their business priorities will just dictate the risk appetite, and they just should worry more on dealing with the business but managing risks in a different way? So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say trust equals business growth, and it refers again to one of the survey points that came out, is that whilst SMBs are primarily focused on growth, cybersecurity and data protection has risen up over time, just in reference, comparing to previous similar surveys that we've done, where it's now a second priority. But the point about trust means business growth is that trust takes a long time to earn, but can disappear in a second.
Right.
And once again, if there's a compromise or the AI model does something that it wasn't supposed to, and the business ends up having its reputation damaged or losing millions, which could be from fines or paying a ransomware, that's another discussion. But it's super important. So trust, I think, equates to business growth.
One of their top issues is to stay on top of the threat landscape, isn't it, in terms of challenges for SMBs. So how is AI changing the threat landscape, and how is AI impacting SMBs, particularly when it comes to cyber?
Yeah, I think referring back to the initial opening part of our conversation, we saw quite a big difference based on company size on, this concern about AI-related threats, whether that's AI being used in attack or the fact that the companies wants to move very quickly to deploy AI assets in order to gain some competitive advantage. And I think the key message there is that there's not too great a distance between the speed of the AI transformation and then the cyber risk profile that can change with that, because AI complicates everything. There are new attack surfaces potentially emerging, and it's not just AI, also other new technologies, whether that's IT/OT convergence or mobile handhelds, all the different, and going cloud native, all of those different new technologies are double-edged swords. So the company can do well building and using AI assets, but at the same time, it might introduce new vulnerabilities. So that's what we saw from our survey.
So it all feels very consuming, I think. If I'm an SMB, listen to this, I'm feeling, oh my God, I have to consider all those different attack scenarios, and now that AI is amplifying some of them and AI is introducing new ones. If somebody's trying to, help develop a cyber program or improve their cyber security posture in a business, what would it be the top advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I think, again, it's repeating that team sport concept.
Right.
SMBs tend to not have the internal resource to be able to do that themselves, or the knowledge. And so they should rightly seek help, get assistance in terms of advice or innovative tool sets for data discovery, or understanding whether, for example, employees are using AI tools that they're not supposed to. There are tools, technologies, innovation available for that. And some of it is organizational. And so I think we recommend small steps, but to make those steps with being informed. So training and awareness, and to leverage partnerships.
Okay. Do you feel that SMBs are seeing AI more of a threat or of an opportunity for their business? And how are they feeling about it? So how do you think AI is changing for them, and how do they think as well?
Yeah, I think they do perceive a tremendous opportunity with AI applied to their business to improve productivity, be more competitive. However, a lot do have a very low level of confidence in them being able to protect AI and have the right controls and I guess structure in place to reduce vulnerabilities that might come from adoption. So it's a big mixture. Again, we keep on having this common thread of the size of company and the maturity levels being very present in that. I think part of it is, on the smaller side, there's a dedicated IT person that happens to also be the security person. Then you move up to the medium to larger end of the SMBs. So companies that might have 500 staff, then there's a dedicated security team. And I think they are more prepared to address the opportunity in AI.
Okay, so you touched on another super important topic, which is education, isn't it? I think one of the things in our industry is a lot can be achieved if you only invest in some of the foundational controls. So you can deal with majority of problem with foundational controls. And we hear that all the time in our industry. Education is a big part of it, right? And are there any other, controls and ways in which they could protect themselves that would be more foundational that you'd recommend them to adopt?
Yeah, the survey results showed that foundation controls are in place. Email protection is one of the first one, endpoint, things like VPN technologies. Those seem to be prevalent and in place. However, there is an overall need for the businesses to be more proactive, or have proactive security controls rather than reactive. So that would be the...
Understood. So the main goal that they should be pursuing is just having the debate, understanding the risks, mapping the risks, and then looking at what controls are more suitable for their business, right? So what you're suggesting is just don't wait for something to happen to you and then respond. Just go there, educate yourself, build knowledge around your own risks, and then go and try and to the best of your ability to...
Yeah, 100%. And we're talking about how AI can be an enabler. The bad news is the baddies are also using AI. And so what we've seen, this is generally across all industries and segments, is that now with AI tools and automation in the hands of the criminals, from an initial access to data compromise, the window became smaller, and hence the need for that proactive security and zero trust concepts and so on.
Understood. And just to touch very quickly, can you just elaborate on some of those threats that, you mentioned about AI now being used by attackers, and that seems quite worrying. What are the kind of threats that you believe SMBs are struggling with or facing at the moment? are they more of the same but amplified, or is there any material change in the threat landscape now that AI changed everything?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I actually think that the cyber attacks themselves are kind of the same. They haven't really changed dramatically. It's more a case of volumes are up, and then potentially sophistication.
Right.
Because again, the adversaries are leveraging AI in their attacks, and it's a very cynical, large economy and scale economy.
Got it.
So potentially, you can crowdfund your cybersecurity criminal startup, and there are all the tools are available to conduct attacks. You don't even need to understand technology. That's why the volume is going up. But specifically in the survey, the security practitioners that we asked the questions to said that things like phishing, more advanced phishing, so hard to recognize.
Right.
There's no longer those silly spelling mistakes and things like that. And social engineering has become powered by AI again on the criminal side, is a big concern for those.
Understood. It's like deepfake being used to try and con people.
Yeah.
Understood. Then looking ahead, if you look, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and AI is changing technologies at lightning speed, but over the next months, perhaps couple of years, what are your predictions? What's going to change in the industry, in the economy for SMBs, for cyber criminals, and all these? Do you think cybersecurity is going to become even more of a priority, or do you see that actually we'll see SMBs getting their acts together, and the threat landscape easing a bit?
I think it will become more of a priority over time. Part of that's driven by geopolitics and the current threat landscape. But in actual fact, when you look at critical national infrastructure and governments are investing in that, one might argue that the SMB community is part of a critical
supply chain
for any given country too. And therefore, I think law enforcement, government regulations, and the SMBs themselves and third-party partners will be increasing their efforts to support SMBs, and budget will be allocated. I think that's the direction of travel currently.
Thank you so much for being here with us. It was super insightful topic, fantastic topic, and you managed to distill it quite well for our audience.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you very much to Sage for partnering with IDC on this survey. I think what's resulted from it is a very, very meaningful piece of research that will be helpful and valuable to the industry.
I mean, it's been a fantastic conversation, so I appreciate your participation and all your help with the report.